Hi, and welcome to Yoga Talks Live. I'm Ashleigh Sargent, I'm your host, and I am today here with Gina Caputo. And today we're going to be talking about the anatomy and the energetics of the core, which, I mean, could mean so many things.
Indeed.
And also, I almost forgot, we also are here with Jacqueline. Jacqueline is here to help answer questions directly coming in from members. So, Gina, I know this is a topic that's really kind of near and dear to your heart.
Quite literally.
Or your core.
Right below it.
Literally. So why don't we just start off a little with, what's your spiel?
On the core?
On the core.
All right. So I actually like to think of my core. I love the word, but I think that it's been used and adopted in a way that would, for a lot of people, not everyone, but would suggest that it means your abdominal muscles.
Yeah.
And I actually like to think of it being like a whole department and not just like a certain set of muscles. So for me, when I say core, or when I teach about core, I really mean like the hub of your body. And in the context of yoga asana, it's really the hub of every pose. So for me, core is really absolutely a 360-degree department.
Sure.
So we've got our abdominals on the front and a bit on the sides. You've got your pelvic floor. You've got some of the deeper muscles of your trunk, like quadratus lumborum on the back.
Yeah.
The iliopsoas really deep in the front. And then I really also think of all of your erector spinae. Those are the muscles of your back. So I really just think of core as being this, did I say bottom, pelvic floor?
Yeah.
Top, you've got like your diaphragm.
Right.
So truly 360. And that's beneficial, in my opinion, to understand your core as that both anatomically as well as energetically.
Yeah. And I think one of the things also as well is, again, not everyone thinks of it this way, but there has been so much kind of emphasis on like this strong physical core, like from the abdominal region.
Yeah.
And, I love always the analogy of what doesn't bend breaks.
Right.
And this concept, I think, of having a strong core or like literally like tight core, tight abs, especially for women.
Pull it tight, for sure.
Is a total, misnomer out there because again, if we think about and, we know more and more as we start to dive into the deeper things, concepts of anatomy, is that we used to kind of think of the anatomical structure as this kind of like brick and mortar type stackable thing that we also think about buildings. Yeah. And we know more so now that as the concept of like biotensegrity keeps coming bigger, the idea of fascia and connective tissue, that actually it's more like our bones and our organs and everything are actually kind of more held inside of this like elasticy, floaty, very watery structure, including the muscles as well. And so any place where something is so tight,
rigid,
or strong or rigid is going to cause all sorts of issues in other places.
Indeed. I like to think of when it comes to the health of your nervous system, like a healthy nervous system, and here I'm talking like your autonomic nervous system, that's freeze, fight, or flight, and the rest and digest response. A healthy nervous system is one that can activate when need be and relax when need be. And I apply the same logic to like the health of your core. Is I love the idea of your core being able to be strong when the moments call for it. Like if you're destabilized, you're about to fall, you're lifting something heavy, you've gone to Costco and you're getting all your groceries out of the cart or whatever. Like I love the idea of being able to engage, but I also think that it's equally important to be able to also soften, kind of to your point where everything is connected. And if we overemphasize, you're going to end up with like hypertonic muscles, hypertonic pelvic floor, where you don't have the ability to really relax and soften when that's appropriate. And where we see this in yoga, I'm sure you have too as a teacher, is when we do pranayamas like Kapalabhati, which is the skull shining breath, where you're pumping your abdomen. And over the years, I've noticed that folks who have really cultivated this very tight core in the sense of it's always drawn in, Uddiyana Bandha emphasis to the extreme, that actually, for some of them, the relaxing part, well, it's not really relaxing, but the part of Kapalabhati where you have to relax your abdominal muscles to allow your diaphragm to drop is the hardest part, where the pushing out is less hard because that's their normal now.
Yeah.
But you see it in the inability to like fluctuate your abdomen. So I always say, like, get in touch with your inner Ganesh and you gotta let it hang.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, every part of ourselves should be able to ultimately, in a healthy way, engage and lengthen.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear what some of the y'all are asking for. Some of the y'all.
Some of the y'alls. Tell us, y'all.
Tell us, y'all. Jacqueline, what are people asking?
So we have a member, Unbound, who's asking more about the energetics of the core. They're asking about the energetic and chakra implications of strengthening the core muscles. And he's also wondering if they all relate to the same energies, or do different muscles relate differently to these energies?
I think that's a really great question, and I think we can say a lot about it.
Yeah.
I'll chime in first by saying that I think it's an awesome question, and I think there's so many ways to kind of dive into this, and so many ways that we can take the different maps of different systems. You know, for example, so the chakra system is a system that is found in the yoga traditions, and there's lots of yoga traditions that can't even really agree necessarily on the chakra system, so we can start with that. And then we have the muscles, and then we have Chinese medicine that kind of does all this mapping. And I think there's, I think it's beautiful, and I love it. And I kind of also want to start by saying that there is this very kind of Western mindset technology that like everything needs to like fit together in this like exact way. And this desire for this exact thing to correlate to this thing and this thing to correlate to that thing so that it all fits in a pretty little box. And like the deeper I study yoga, like the more that concept gets completely blown apart. And so I just want to kind of state with that, because I think there's, as we can dive into some of these ideas, you know, in my experience, different traditions say different things, and I experience the energetics of my body shifting different energy centers differently all the time. So I think if we were to talk about the chakras specifically, I think of kind of like the core chakras would be Swadhisthana chakra, so second chakra, sacral chakra, Manipura chakra in the core, in the belly, in the navel center, and the heart chakra. And there's all sorts of implications. I'm going to let you dive into a little bit of the anatomy around it. But when I think of that, I think that having these energies activated is very different than having these muscles activated. It's not to say that they don't interact or they don't intersect sometimes, but we absolutely can, you know, Anadea Judith wrote a beautiful book that I love called Wheels of Life. If no one's checked it out, I think it's a great book. And she really gets into kind of talking about how each energy center can be kind of inactive or excessive. And then there's a lot of other traditions that even go into all of these other different energies that can be happening in the chakra, that it can be spinning too much, it can be flaccid too much, it can be stimulated too much, it can be spinning too much. There's all these different things. So it's not quite as simple as just is it turned on or is it turned off? And so I think when we start to talk about energetics a little bit more, a healthy or a kind of dynamic and moving core from an energetic aspect is really a harmonious balance and an interconnection between our creative selves, right? The second chakra is our ability to kind of create in the world, to interact with others, balanced with our power, you know, our personal strength, our will, right? Because if our will is kind of overdrive, then my ability to be able to create with you would be I'm just talking over you all the time. And so those would need to be in harmony. We kind of have that collaboration, and also in the heart center, you know, and this is something that our culture is desperately learning and needing to learn right now, is this balance between the heart space, the heart as being the core, which is something so strong in its power of love and unconditional love, and yet really soft and gentle and open. And how do we co-create with others in a way that is loving and honoring our own will and our power and hearing other people's power? And it's a really complex and really intricate thing. So I could go deep into that one, but if I think about it energetically, that's kind of an aspect that I think of. It's this harmonious engagement between different energies.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I think you just really proved your own point when you opened.
Good. I like when I can prove my own point.
You said that it's hard, like we have a bit of an attachment to knowing the answer and making everything fit. But ultimately, this is a question about the subtle body. And the subtle body can't be dissected.
Yeah.
And there's really no way to know for sure, like scientific evidence, peer-reviewed, like it can't.
Is this chakra on?
Right. It's experiential. And so everything that you just said, I was really following you along on that journey, and I was really feeling it. But for me, without reiterating everything you said, it's less heart. And for me, it definitely includes the root chakra. So
Cool.
To Unbound's question of do different muscles correspond to different chakras, you described 3 going upward this way. And for me, you spoke about the 3rd or Manipura solar plexus chakra as being one associated with sense of self, will, determination, ability to manifest in the world. And experientially for me, I can't do that without clarity, like around what I stand for. So if we're talking anatomically, I would even go so far, and you're not going to find this in anatomy books, so forgive me, but I would go so far as, in my own experience, to include even my inner thighs in core.
Sure.
And so thighs, legs, would be part of root chakra. So you imagine, let's say you're doing something with a block, you squeeze it between your legs, and it kind of just lights up, for me, experientially, this channel. I suppose for our friends out there, and just in case it's been a while since you had this download, the anatomy of your core, I said, I think it includes a lot of muscles. But just to be really clear, there's a deep muscle of your abdominals that's called transversus abdominis, or TA, or TVA. Pilates folks are really into it. And I love it because its job primarily, well, it has a lot of jobs, of course, but it serves to stabilize us. And that's, again, the connection with legs.
Yeah.
I think that I feel that. To stabilize us as well as compress your abdomen. Again, so when we think of postures, any of the standing balance poses, things like pointer dog, or any other things that you do like on a Bosu ball or one of those, what are they called, Indo boards?
Yep, totally.
Yeah, where you destabilize, you are doing some really great TVA or transversus abdominis work. So that one's great. I had a teacher once that called that, she was a Pilates teacher, called it your superhero underpants. It's kind of like, shh. And I've always loved that image because you're like, yes.
You're like, okay, I can feel it.
I've got my TA on right now. And then over that, you've got your internal and external obliques. And then on top of that is the one we all know because it's the most superficial, meaning close to the skin, and it's the most visible, which would be your rectus abdominis. And that would be, we call it the 6-pack, but it's actually an 8-pack. Goes all the way, and it goes all the way up to your heart, which is why even anatomically speaking, I was totally going along with what you're saying. And then there's counterparts on your back body as well. But to Unbound's question, I think absolutely, though there's this hub that I would say is predominantly 3rd chakra, once we start looking at, like, let's call them the core synergists, right? Then you've got your pelvic floor, maybe even your inner thighs. You've got all your spinal erectors and extensor muscles. So I think they can definitely correspond down and up. Probably unlikely to go all the way to, let's say, throat or 3rd eye or crown, but definitely the lower chakras.
Yeah. Awesome. We could go on and on. Let's have another question, though.
So we have a question that was actually written in Spanish from Sicilian. She's asking about the fact that she's 53 years old and she generally goes to the gym about twice a week, and she likes to do weight training and cardio. She's never practiced yoga, but she's hoping to start. Her question is it possible to gain flexibility and tone her muscles by only practicing yoga, considering her age? And she would like to just stop going to the gym and just dedicate herself to one practice. And she's wondering if yoga is the one.
I think that's a great question. You want to take a swing at it?
I would just say I'm not that far from, it was 53? Yeah. 53? Okay. I'm not that far from 53, and I would just say this. It depends, and that's a totally annoying answer, but I would say it depends on which yoga you choose to practice. So for example, now I'm outside my wheelhouse a little bit, but I don't think that there are some, let me just say it this way, there's some styles of yoga where there's not as much weight bearing as other styles of yoga. And I would say if osteoporosis is a concern, which I think it is for most of us that are, well, first of all, women or over a certain age, that we really do want to make sure that we have some weight-bearing exercise involved in our regimen. So there are wonderful yoga practices, as you know, for your nervous system primarily, like restorative yoga or like yin. And those don't involve nearly as much weight bearing. So for osteoporosis and bone density, I would say it's possible if you are practicing a style of yoga that involves weight bearing. But ultimately, I think one has to look at like what is really serving them. Is bone density an issue? Is it a concern? Is it something you care about? Is maintaining your functional mobility something you care about? Because then you might want to really be increasing strength in diverse ranges of motion, which you can do in yoga, but it always depends. And for someone who's never practiced before, I would just say, please know that there are so many different styles that you may try one and you think, oh, no way could I give up the gym for yoga because this is yoga. And I would say, keep looking and you may actually find that hybrid that feels like all of my needs are being served. I'm not neglecting my muscle strengthening by practicing yoga, this particular yoga, and I'm still getting to do diverse movements and diverse ranges of motion.
Yeah, and I think an important aspect as well is having been a mover for my whole life for a lot of different reasons, pain, strength needs. My mom was an aerobics instructor and then a yoga teacher. I've found, and it's been my experience, that many different types of movement are really beneficial for us, and kind of this desire that we have. I know I have it inside of myself. I think I'm slowly like scraping away at it, like to find the thing, the one thing that's going to answer it all and do it for me. It's not really the way that these beautiful, complex systems, that organisms that we are in and are a part of really work, And so I'd say that just like Gina said, trying different types of styles of yoga, but also finding, what these different types of movements do for us. Like I get a very different experience and a very different feeling from going to the gym. I like to lift weights sometimes. I do a little bit of cardio. My body doesn't really like cardio. My joints are not very happy about it. And then I get a very different thing from my yoga practice. Like for a long time, I didn't do anything except for yoga. And my muscles, like try doing a pull-up. I just like hang there like, help me. But I could like stand on my hands for 5 minutes, and it's imbalanced. And maybe it's not necessarily anything wrong with it if you don't feel pain. For me, I did. But I think if you're someone who's really interested in health and well-being in your body, that having this curiosity to continue looking around for different types of practices through yoga, through maybe kind of some, qigong, things like that, through cardio, through weightlifting, through swimming, things along those lines. These all give our body, these very complex systems, different ways of strength and mobility. And I think that, in my experience, that's really important.
I agree with you. I would encourage you to really tune into not just what is your body getting out of each of those experiences, like you said, working out and yoga or Tai Chi or any of those, but like not just what is your body getting, but what are you getting on, like, let's call it the soul level. Like, how do you feel? So like when I work out, I feel really tough, I'm like, and that could be very much like third chakra type of thing, right? But then when I practice yoga, for me, the effect tends to be a little bit more of a like softening of the edges, but that's because I come to it usually a little more, I tend more towards the intense. Also, to your point, I have to advocate, there's all these formal modalities, like these different workouts and different yogas we can do. I have to say, as I age, I highly advocate for also freestyle movement.
Amen.
And for me, what that looks like is I get up in the morning, I do my yoga, my meditation practice and some gentle movement, and then I pick on essentially my jam of the day. And it's got to be a jam, like it's not a new jam, it's a jam that like, I feel this one. And then I get up and then I'm in my living room, still in my jammies, and I do like complete freestyle movement where the only rule I have for myself is I really make an effort to move through every joint. So I'm even doing my wrists, my spine, my neck, like everything. And I think like some people like me and probably like you, like that's just second nature. And for some of us, maybe we're used to being told like, here's how you do it right. And that feels maybe awkward. But
it took me time to get there. I was uncomfortable. I mean, I always liked to dance, but it took me time to be able to move freely because I really liked, like, tell me exactly how to do the alignment thing, and I'm doing it correctly.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important, this elasticity that we're talking about. Again, it's this concept of like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it specific? Can I get more information about everything?
Right.
Actually kind of, again, locks us into it. So I think even to the point of the core and the energetics of the core, this freedom and this elasticity to move within ourselves is part of that.
Yeah, I think that diversity is key. So
yeah.
I would recommend keep
question.
doing your workout as long as you enjoy it, explore yoga, and then maybe some free form movement. So as we age, I think you don't want to lose it.
Amen to that.